So I really enjoyed this movie. Now this is the second movie that I've seen from this director, with the first one being Past Lives, which is a movie that I reviewed in a previous episode, so if you're interested then you can go see my thoughts on that. But just to keep it short, I really did enjoy that movie and found it to be an interesting take on this kind of story that it was telling. Now I feel I'm going to be a little bit more controversial with my take on this movie, because from my understanding, I'm understanding not a lot of people really enjoyed this movie. They didn't hate it or anything, they just weren't really into it. But I'm going to go so far as to say that not only did I really strongly enjoy this movie, but I also think I like it more than the first movie. Now if you paid attention to the marketing of this movie, you would understand that it really markets itself as a classic kind of sitcom from the early 2000s, and I think that's why a lot of people wanted to see this movie to begin with, and that's what they were kind of expecting. Now I think a better way to explain this movie would be to think of it as a really strong character drama following the basic setup and story of a rom-com, and there's a lot in this movie that gets really right. Now to begin with, all the performances in this movie were very well done and worked well with the story they were telling, not to mention that there's some very strong character writing throughout this film, which is what I come to expect from this director. There are certain sequences and ideas and themes throughout this film that are presented, and it's very interesting to think about. Sure, it's kind of cliche, but the way that this movie presents itself, I was really into it to begin with. I love the way that this movie comments on consumerism and modern dating and how it just becomes basically picking and choosing what they want. The structure and overall story themes throughout this movie do feel very familiar, but it feels as if most of the emotions that it invokes throughout this movie are also very well earned. Not to mention, I would say that this is a much more professional looking movie than the last director's movie, The Past Lives. It's not some of the most amazing directing or cinematography of all time, but it does have a very strong language, and it certainly is done with a lot of professionalism to it. And now going back to story structure, there are some interesting twists and turns that this movie takes to better present the themes and characters themselves that I feel work for it, and there are some more cliched elements, especially near the ending of the movie, that I don't really feel work all that well. There's a breakup scene in this movie that I think doesn't really work that well at all, and the overall way that the story ended did feel somewhat lacking to me personally. It just felt like it reverted back to a lot of cliches, and yeah, this movie is kind of cliched throughout, but the emotions in the beginning part of this movie were much more justified. And what I really enjoyed about Past Lives was how it was able to break cliches and really delve into its story and themes in an interesting way. Now the humor aspect in this movie is probably one of the most lacking things. It's not a huge aspect to this film, as it's more focused on the characters and overall theme of the movie, but I would say it's still strongly there, and there are definitely good moments that I find humorous in this movie. The editing and visual presentation certainly does help with that, to be honest. Now I do have some story gripes with this movie, particularly near the end of the film, so if you don't want to hear spoilers for this movie, especially considering the fact that this takes place near the end of the movie, then skip to this part in the video. So I was kind of weirded out by the decision to have Dakota Johnson's character end up with Chris Evans' character. I mean, on paper, sure, it makes sense in regards to the themes of the movie, is of kind of just being a critique of materialism and consumerism and online dating and whatever, but the reason that she gives to break up with Pedro Pascal's characters were just not really that fitting to me, and in all honesty, I can't even really remember any of the reasons that she gave. Now granted that this breakup scene is done better than a lot of other breakup scenes in other movies, and they could have really done a terrible job writing Pedro Pascal's character to make him just an overly cartoonish bad guy or whatever, and he is decent throughout the film. Not to mention there's another part in this movie after the breakup with Pedro Pascal's character where Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson's character go to outside of the country, and they begin talking about their relationship and why they broke up in the first place and whether or not they should be back together now. And there's another conflict that's brought up, so they rush back to New York City to deal with that, and then afterwards they kind of just accept it, even though these emotions aren't really addressed in any way. Like, they're addressed but they're only affirmed. There's no real reason for them to get back together, in my opinion. It just felt like they kind of forced the ending in a way, and it was really noticeable considering how polished the movie had been up to that point. Nevertheless, I still really did enjoy most of this movie and can definitely watch it again, but it is something that I felt could have been done better. And there are other directions you could take for this character, that she just decides to be with Pedro Pascal's character not for materialism, but just because she genuinely has a connection with him. And the fact that they're adults and that they do have to kind of swallow the pill and say, yeah, some relationships aren't going to be good for you and there are going to be financial restraints, but that's just about being responsible and things like that. And this is all in regards to Rich Evans' character, of course. I would also say that the song choices and music throughout this film were also well presented and it felt like they fit in and they had a good idea of how to use them. Nothing amazing in that category, but definitely well done and felt like it deserved the mention. Now overall, just like I would say with Past Lives, I would say that this movie is very well presented. It's clear that Selena Sung is very good at writing characters and having them strong performances and a lot of care put into them, and that's what I really enjoy about her movies, so I'm definitely excited to see what she'll do next. As of now, this one gets a very strong 7 out of 10.